Sports Live, broadcasting live with more March Madness basketball picks. This live stream, we will do the Women's National Invitational Tournament, and for the men, we will do the College Basketball Invitational. We'll first start off with the Women's NIT. In this Women's NIT, there will be 48 teams that will be competing for a chance at a championship tournament title. Again, the NIT used to be the tournament that would determine the national championship, but that has changed now. But we're going to go through this, and what we're going to do is I'll explain how the games work within each of the tournaments as we get to them, and then we'll go team by team or game by game, and we'll try to figure out who's going to actually win these games. It does not matter if you know anything about these teams or not. And this is part 2 of the March Madness college basketball picks. We normally don't do this many basketball teams for stuff that we cover, but March Madness is a crazy time in sports with basketball, and we try to cover as much basketball as we possibly can during this time period. So, according to this, the NIT for the women, the first round is March 20th through 22nd. The second round is March 23rd through 25th. The Super 16, or what we call Sweet 16, is on March 27th to 28th. The Great 8, or Elite 8, is March 29th through March 31st. The Fab 4 is April 3rd and 4th. That would normally be your Final Four. And your championship game will be played on April 5th. So without further ado, let's get into this. Okay, first game we have is Air Force versus Utah Valley. Who do y'all pick to win this game? And it does not matter if you know anything about these teams or not. Just make your picks and we'll see what goes from that. So, Air Force or Utah Valley? Okay, Air Force it is. I have 2 votes for Air Force. All right, moving on to the next game, and this is the Women's NIT. Next game is Pacific versus New Mexico State. Pacific or New Mexico State?
Mexico State.
All right, we have 2 votes for New Mexico State, so we will do New Mexico State. All right, the next game is going to be the University of Texas in Arlington or UIW. UT Arlington or UIW.
Arlington.
All right, I have 2 votes for the University of Texas in Arlington. We will go UT Arlington. All right, next game is Chattanooga versus Alabama A&M. Chattanooga or Alabama A&M, who do we have?
Chattanooga.
I have 1 vote for Chattanooga, and I have 1 vote for Alabama A&M. Unless anybody else votes, we have a tie. In this instance, since there is a tie, I will cast the deciding vote for who we go with. Now, I can choose to stay with my original pick, or I can make a change. And looking at this a little bit closer, I'm going to make a change and change my vote from Alabama A&M to Chattanooga. So Chattanooga it is. Okay, next game we've got is Abilene Christian or Northwestern State. Abilene Christian or Northwestern State.
Abilene.
All right, I have 2 votes for Abilene Christian, so we will go Abilene Christian on that particular game. I failed to mention that of the 48 teams, 16 teams will play their first game in the second round. Everybody else will play starting in the first round. I didn't explain that earlier because of just how they did the bracket. So, anyway, moving on. We have Western Illinois versus Lipscomb.
Illinois.
I have 2 votes for Western Illinois. We will go Western Illinois. Okay, next is Lindenwood or Tulsa. Lindenwood or Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Okay, unless anybody else has a vote, I have 2 votes for Tulsa. All right, Tulsa it is. All right, so next game is Texas Southern or St. Mary's.
Texas Southern.
All right, I have 2 votes for Texas Southern. Next game we have will be Washington State versus Air Force. All right, it looks like I've got 2 votes right now for Air Force, so we will go with Air Force. All right, the next game we have is North Dakota State versus New Mexico State. North Dakota State or New Mexico State?
New Mexico.
I have 2 votes for New Mexico State. All right, the next game we have will be North Texas versus the University of Texas in Arlington. North Texas or Texas and Arlington?
Arlington.
I have 1 vote for North Texas and 1 vote for UT Arlington. In this situation, we have a tie. So in that instance, I get to be the one to break the tie. I could either keep my vote with the same team as it is, or I could change my vote. The last time we had a tie, I changed my vote. This time, I don't think I'm going to. I think North Texas is actually better. Okay, I've got 2 votes for North Texas, so there's no tie now. So we will go North Texas. North Texas it is. All right, so the next one we've got is Troy or Chattanooga. Troy or Chattanooga.
Chattanooga.
I have 1 vote for Chattanooga. I have 1 vote for Troy. Anybody else wish to cast the vote? We're making picks on the women's NIT, and we're looking at the game Troy versus Chattanooga. Last chance. All right, so right now we have a tie in this situation with Troy and Chattanooga, and in that situation, again, I could be the one to break the tie. If I choose to keep my vote the same, I can, or I could change my vote. In this instance, I'm going to change my vote, and we're going to Chattanooga. All right, next game we have is Central Arkansas or Abilene Christian. Central Arkansas or Abilene Christian?
Abilene.
All right, I have 2 votes for Abilene Christian. All right, the next game we have is Illinois State or Western Illinois.
Illinois State.
I have 2 votes for Illinois State, so there we go. All right, next game we have is going to be Tarleton State or Tulsa. Tarleton State or Tulsa.
Tulsa.
I have 2 votes for Tulsa, so we will go Tulsa. Next game is Louisiana Tech or Texas Southern. Louisiana Tech or Texas Southern?
Louisiana Tech.
All right, we've got 1 vote for Louisiana Tech, and now we've got 2 votes for Louisiana Tech. And since nobody else is voting, that's what we will go with on that. All right, the next game we have is Air Force versus New Mexico State. Air Force or New Mexico State?
Air Force.
Okay, I have 2 votes for Air Force, so that's who we're going to go with. Okay, North Texas or Chattanooga? Yeah, I know, that's a tough one.
North Texas.
All right, I have 2 votes for North Texas. And some of these teams I've never heard of, so I'm just like everyone else out there in YouTube land, making these picks. We're making them based on what we think is a consensus. Some of these teams I know about, some I do not. So we've got that one. All right. Next game is going to be Abilene Christian versus Illinois State. Abilene Christian or Illinois State?
Illinois State.
All right, we have Illinois State with 2 votes. All right, next game is Tulsa or Louisiana Tech. Tulsa or Louisiana Tech?
Louisiana Tech.
All right, I have 1 vote for Tulsa and 1 vote for Louisiana Tech. Again, the situation comes to where there's 2 votes and I have to break the tie. I can either keep my vote the same or I could change my vote. And in this instance, I'm going to keep my vote the same with Tulsa, so that is who we will have since I have to be the one to break the tie. All right, next game we have is Air Force versus North Texas.
North Texas.
I have 2 votes for North Texas, so we shall go North Texas on that one. All right, next game is Illinois State or Tulsa.
Tulsa.
All right, I have 2 votes for Tulsa. Anybody else wish to cast a vote? All right, we got 2 votes for Tulsa, so that's who we're going to go with. Now, on this side of the bracket, we have North Texas or Tulsa. Who do we have?
Tulsa. North Texas.
Okay, final decision.
Tulsa.
All right, I got 2 votes for Tulsa. So we have one end of the championship game. Now we have to go to the other side of the bracket in order to figure out who Tulsa will play for the national championship. So here we go. We have the University of Massachusetts versus Stonehill.
University of Mass.
All right, I have 2 votes for UMass. All right, next game we have is Coastal Carolina versus Campbell. Who do we have in YouTube land?
Tell me again.
Coastal Carolina or Campbell?
Coastal.
All right, we got Coastal Carolina with 2 votes on that one. All right, here we go in the women's play. Bryant or Army, and this is at West Point. So we will have Army. I have 2 votes for Army on that one. Yes, this is the main campus that is located in West Point. They do have women's teams there. Even though you wouldn't think so, all you hear about is the Army-Navy football game, but this is basketball. So anyway, next game is Howard versus Siena. Howard or Siena?
Howard.
I have 2 votes for Howard.
That's just a big guess.
Yeah, and that's a guess for me too because I know nothing about that game. And I mean, I've seen them play, but I still don't really know enough about them to make a decision outside of that. All right, here we go. DeQuesne or Longwood?
Longwood.
All right, Longwood with 2 votes. All right, next game, Colgate or Coppin State?
Say it again.
Colgate or Coppin State?
Coppin.
Okay, we got Coppin State with 1 vote, and we now have Coppin State with 2 votes. All right, next one is Old Dominion or Navy? Old Dominion or Navy?
Navy.
I have 1 vote for Old Dominion and 1 vote for Navy. In this situation, again, we have a tie. And in that situation with the tie, I could either choose to keep my vote the same or I could change my vote to the other team if I so wish. In this game in question, I think I'm actually going to change my vote and we're going to go Navy on that game. All right, next game is UIC or UAB?
UAB.
Okay, I got 2 votes for UAB. All right, the next game we'll be doing is UAB or Butler?
UAB.
Okay, 2 votes for UAB. Next game would be Purdue and Fort Wayne or Navy?
Navy.
All right, 2 votes for Navy. Moving on to the next game. Coppin State or Cleveland State?
Cleveland.
I have 2 votes for Cleveland State. Anybody else want to vote on this? Okay, we got Cleveland State. Next game we have is the University of Miami in Ohio versus Longwood.
Longwood.
Okay, I have 2 votes for Longwood. So we're going Longwood. All right, next game. Howard or Colonel of Charleston?
Howard.
Okay, we got 2 votes for Howard. I'm voting Howard because it's easier to say than Colonel of Charleston. I don't know much. I'm going to be honest on that particular game. I do not know much about it. So I'm just going to go Howard because Colonel of Charleston is a mouthful for a team I really don't know that well. Moving on to the next game, we have Army versus Rutgers. Army or Rutgers? Who do we have?
Rutgers.
Yep, I certainly agree. We have 2 votes for Rutgers. All right, next game is Coastal Carolina or Southern Indiana.
Coastal.
All right, I have 2 votes for Coastal Carolina. I like them. Southern Indiana, not so much on that. So next game is the University of Massachusetts versus Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yeah, UMass is not really known for being an athletic school, period. I mean, they will win some games, but they're usually mediocre at best. This is going to be the same case in this one. We're going to go Buffalo. All right, next game is Navy versus UAB. Navy or UAB?
Navy.
I have 2 votes for Navy. I think Navy will beat UAB here because they're the better team. Moving on to the next one, since we had the 2 votes, Cleveland State or Longwood?
Cleveland State.
Okay, I have 2 votes for Cleveland State over Longwood, so we will do Cleveland State. Okay, next game, Rutgers versus Howard. Who do we have?
Rutgers.
I have 2 votes for Rutgers. We're going to go Rutgers. Next game is Buffalo or Coastal Carolina. Buffalo or Coastal Carolina.
Coastal.
I have 2 votes for Coastal Carolina, so we will go Coastal Carolina. Now, Coastal Carolina or Rutgers?
Coastal.
Okay, we have Coastal Carolina. Next game, Cleveland State or Navy?
Navy.
All right, Navy it is. Next game, and this one will, let's see, it's Coastal Carolina or Navy? No, Coastal Carolina or Navy? All right, we got Coastal Carolina there. Now, for the championship game in this women's NIT, as you see we showing right there, we have Tulsa versus Coastal Carolina. Who do we have to win the championship of this tournament for the women's National Invitational Tournament? I have 2 votes for Coastal Carolina. So we will have Coastal Carolina winning this championship. I'm going to circle it and show what we picked. All right, the next tournament we're going to do is a men's basketball tournament. It is a postseason tournament, and there's not as many games or as many teams in this tournament. It's called the College Basketball Invitational. There are 11 teams in this tournament. So, first round starts March 23rd, the quarterfinals March 24th, the semifinals March 25th, and the championship game will be March 26th. Because of the lack of teams in this particular tournament, in the Illinois State Presbyterian game, they will get whoever wins that game will get a second round bye, and then they'll move over to the semifinals. And that's how that will work, and we'll explain it further as we go. So let's get into the picking on this, shall we? In the first round, we'll start with first round. Illinois State or Presbyterian, and this is men's basketball. This is a postseason tournament, and all that's at stake is a tournament championship in the postseason. No national championship is going to be given. However, they may treat it as such because it is a big tournament. Anyway, Illinois State or Presbyterian?
Illinois.
I have 2 votes for Illinois State. So, in this circumstance, when we start talking quarterfinals, Illinois will get the bye, and they will not play a quarterfinal game. They will just move on to the semifinals, and I'll move them over shortly. Next game is Manhattan or UIW.
Manhattan.
I have 2 votes for Manhattan, so Manhattan is who we are going to have in this tournament. Next game, Elon or Army? Elon or Army?
Army.
I'm going to end up doing something just to be funny, but I like the name Elon. Elon is a great guy if you know who I'm talking about. So outside of him, I'm going to have Elon beating Army as my initial vote. But in this circumstance, we have Elon with 1 vote and Army with 1 vote, and we have a tie, which means that I can either keep my original vote the same or I can change it. And because I was being funny about the Elon thing, I don't think they will beat Army. I'm actually changing my vote as the tiebreaker situation, and I'm going to go Army. So moving on to the next game, you have Queens versus Northern Arizona.
Arizona.
Well, basketball, it's a little late on that game. We've already made the pick for that game, but you can keep up with us from this point forward. Thank you for joining me, basketball, and thank you, the Ohm, for joining me today. Queens or Northern Arizona? Queens or Northern Arizona?
Arizona.
I have 1 vote for Northern Arizona. Anybody else wish to cast their vote before I cast mine? Okay, nobody's casting a vote, so Northern Arizona will be who we have in that game situation. All right, we are now in the quarterfinals. Again, Illinois is going to get a bye. They will move to the semifinals, and I'm going to place them over here in the semifinal, and I'll show you how I did that, so that way you can follow along with how they're doing the bracket on this setup. So, the next game we have is Manhattan or Jacksonville. Manhattan or Jacksonville, who do we have?
Jacksonville.
All right, I have 2 votes for Jacksonville, and I'm going to assume this is not Jacksonville, Alabama, and I don't know if it's Jacksonville, Arkansas, or any other Jacksonville, so I'm going to assume it's in Florida. So we're going to go Jacksonville and assume that it's Florida unless we're told otherwise. All right, next game is Army versus FGCU. Army or FGCU?
Army.
All right, we have Army and 2 votes for Army. All right, so next game we have is Northern Arizona or Cleveland State. Northern Arizona or Cleveland State?
Cleveland.
I have 2 votes for Cleveland State, so here we go. We're going to go with that. Now, we're already into the semifinals now, and I told you this was a small tournament, but this is a postseason men's basketball tournament. So, between Illinois and Jacksonville, who do you have? Illinois or Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
I have 2 votes for Jacksonville. All right, so the next game we are going to look at is Army versus Cleveland State. Army versus Cleveland State. Who do we have?
Cleveland State.
All right, I have 2 votes for Cleveland State. All right, now for this particular tournament, the College Basketball Invitational, as you see, we have for the championship game of this tournament, Jacksonville or Cleveland State. Who do we have to win the College Basketball Invitational Tournament Championship?
Cleveland.
I have 2 votes for Cleveland State. So, in the College Basketball Invitational, we have Cleveland State winning it. In the Women's National Invitational Tournament, with the process that we've gone through, we have Coastal Carolina set to win the championship in that event. So that is all of the March Madness brackets that we're going to do for these live streams. We will be doing other live streams in the coming days regarding different subject matters. Those will be announced as soon as I know when they'll take place. Thank you again for joining me, Sports Live Media, on YouTube for this live broadcast today for March Madness college basketball picks. We've made a lot of picks today, and hopefully we'll see how we do. When it comes to the end of these tournaments, once all of them have ended, I won't do a live stream of it, but I will do a video that basically mentions how we did in terms of who we picked and if our teams made it to the championships or not. So anyway, thank you again for joining me for this live broadcast. If you will, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell so you can be made aware of when I'm doing these special live streams, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. If you wish to subscribe to the channel, please feel welcome to do so by going to www.youtube.com, the slash symbol, the at symbol, SPORTSLOV, or you can find it simply by typing in Bob Amin, BOBAMIN, in the search tab, and you'll know it's me because I have Sports Live Media burned into a basketball as my avatar there. I'm also on Twitter X. My handle is at BobAmin16. That is the at symbol, BOBAMIN16. You can find me there as well. So if anybody, yes, Parker, I didn't see that you had joined and everything. So Parker, thank you for joining me for this live stream today. I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate each and every one of you who have taken the time to hear about this, and I thank you very much for that. Anybody else have any questions, comments, whatever? Well, if not, I thank you again for joining me for this broadcast. I'm Bob Amin, signing out. Thanks, and have a wonderful day.